Hi, my name is Somnath De. On behalf of Shuddha Desi, we are spreading consciousness about right to have pure, unadulterated food for common people. We talk about how to identify adulterated food, how to safeguard our family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues from the ill effects of food adulteration. We also share healthy tips, news related to food adulteration, etc. on a regular basis. In our previous knowledge sharing session, we talked in depth about food colors. We understood what we should take, what we should not. How are we safe from these food colors? Hope you liked it. In case you didn't get a chance to see the video, please go back and listen. Today we will talk about food flavorings. I have not specifically calling it as food flavor, but flavoring. Let us understand what are the differences first between flavor and flavoring. Flavor and food flavoring are related terms, although they vary in definition. Flavor is created by nature and is composed by aromatic chemicals that are biosynthesized during the normal metabolic process in plants and animals, and which may be further modified by subsequent processing. The intrinsic flavor of food represents the complex impact by these aromatic components on the senses of odor and tastes. Flavoring, on the other hand, are man-made. They are prepared by natural and or synthetic aromatic substances that may or may not be found in nature. The aim is to increase the acceptability of the end product through the simulation of the nose and the palate by modifying a flavor that is already present or masking some undesirable flavor. The role of a flavor is simply to impart sensory pleasure to a good beverage, tobacco, or pharmaceuticals, and in doing so, it serves a diverse function. It is important to understand the function expected of the flavor. There are three types of functions. The first one is economic function. Some healthful, nutritional food preparations might have undesirable tastes, for example, soya or vitamins. Flavors that can modify their taste and make these nutritional, economical food preparations more palatable would be desirable. Another example of the application is the use of flavors to compensate for flavor losses in food processing or to extend freshness during storage. One important function conceptualized by Givaudan Rohrer, it refers to the company that resulted from merger of Givaudan and Rohrer, a Swiss multinational which was later spun off by Hoffmann La Roche and renamed Givaudan SA. According to them, it is a flavor, the unflavored, which is used to bring variety and palatability to bland foods such as cereals. Now, the second one is psychological function. Various studies or tests and fat digestion provide some indication that taste can alter the metabolic response to a fatty meal. There is also research on taste and intestinal absorption of glucose that proposes oral simulation affecting intestinal absorption. However, research in this regard is still in the infancy stage. Psychological functions. Although the main role of a flavor is to provide sensory pleasure, psychological analysis of this pleasure can greatly assist in proper flavor selection. Examples of today's trendy flavors are the fantasy types that do not necessarily represent a commonly known food, but rather a novel combination, thus creating a new identity. These are exemplified by the various fruit punches, candies, toffees, etc. The concept of flavor the unflavored is also useful to add variety and increase sensory pleasure to foods that normally need no further flavoring. The addition of flavors to tea and coffee is an example of this concept. Let me give you two examples from my life. We visited one of the local fairs in Kolkata, Newtown area. We saw some vendors are selling tulai ponji rice. For those who are unaware of this specific rice type, it is one of the 8-9 varieties of rices we get in West Bengal. Those are aromatic. We smelled the aroma and it was really nice. We bought a kg from the fair, and after coming back we cooked the rice. Post cooking there was no aroma at all. I think we must have been scammed, as it's very unlikely to have no aroma post cooking. That was my first and last experience with tulai ponji, so I cannot comment much. Viewers, please share your comments if you are experienced. I think it was adulterated. The second story is during my official tour to Dehradun. In the evening, I visited one of my colleague, friend and brother's in-laws in Dehradun. His father-in-law was alive that time. By the way, I remember him very fondly. Uncle had given me a palmful of local Dehradun rice and asked me to squeeze it between my palms and to get a smell of it. What an aroma. I still remember that. Even after cooking, it was so aromatic. Uncle is still alive within me through that aromatic Dehradun rice. This is one example of natural flavor we are talking here. Let us talk about different types of flavors or flavor in the area of flavorings. Food laws is to assure safety for the consumer and prevent deception. Leveling regulations require that information to be provided on the kind of food, its processing, and the additives contained in it. These principles also apply to flavors. The vast number of flavoring raw materials makes this a difficult task for legislators, resulting in various countries taking different approaches. The purpose of flavoring of a food is to add sensory value or pleasure to the food without altering its identity. Most food regulations are formulated to put a stop to practices where flavor might be used to give false values. The addition of a characterizing flavor is usually not permitted to compensate for the lack of natural flavor due to poor or improper processing. For example, in India, especially in Eastern India, we use significant amount of mustard oil. We consider a pungent smelling or flavor of mustard oil is good sign of mustard oil. The pungency comes from allyl isothiocyanate. In the process of production of mustard oil, the pungency gets lost. So dishonest traders add allyl isothiocyanate to mustard oil to get this pungency. In India, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, FSSAI, has prohibited blending in mustard oil, including the addition of allyl isothiocyanate, AITC, or any other substances to facilitate the manufacturing and sales of pure mustard oil. This prohibition was formalized through a Gazette notification dated March 8, 2021, with the ban taking effect from June 8, 2021. My question here to viewers, as I don't know the answer, we are primarily consuming refined mustard oil, and ideally we should not get pungency in the oil, as refined mustard oil is prepared by hot pressing at 150 degrees Celsius or more, then bleaching and deodorization process happened. In this process, we ideally lost all the allyl isothiocyanates, which is responsible for the pungent smell. But we are getting that pungent smell in refined mustard oil. How are we getting that? As per my knowledge goes, the process of refined mustard oil, pungency should not be there, and as FSSAI guidelines, no additives to add pungency in the oil. So it's a big mystery to me. If you are aware of how we are getting the pungent aroma, please let me know the answer. Flavors are declared in finished good products according to national food leveling regulations. The leveling of food in relation to added flavors is regulated in many countries. The purpose is to level the flavors in conformity with their true nature so that consumers will be properly advised as to the type of flavors used. Although regulations differ greatly from one country to another, the chief objective is to differentiate among the main types of flavors. Natural flavors, which is present naturally. Nature identical flavors, artificial flavors, and mixture of all the above three, meaning natural flavors and nature identical or artificial flavors. Let us understand the differences between nature identical flavors and artificial flavors first. Nature identical flavors are synthetically created in labs to mimic the chemical composition of naturally occurring flavors, while artificial flavors are also synthesized but do not have the same chemical structure as any naturally occurring flavor. So chemical component wise, they differ, though having same or similar flavors. For the most part, artificial flavors offer an identical sensory experience, but there are instances where the same complexity and depth are not possible. It is applicable for those have a more sensitive nose. The natural vanilla flavor is extracted from vanilla beans and diluted with alcohol. The most notable compound that contributes natural flavor to vanilla is hydroxybenzaldehyde. Apart from this, there are over 200 components that are responsible for the flavor of natural vanilla. Example of nature identical flavors: vanillin, a key component of vanilla, and some strawberry flavors are often cited as examples of nature identical flavors. Generally, flavors are listed on the ingredients list of food packets as natural flavors and artificial flavors. Manufacturers don't list chemical names like synthetic vanillin or diluted cinnamaldehyde on the product's ingredient list. Let's get some more examples. Methyl anthranilate is a grape flavor which occurs naturally in grapes. Cinnamaldehyde, this is cinnamon flavor which occurs naturally in cinnamon. 2,4-dithapentane, this is a truffle or garlic flavor and it occurs naturally in some truffles. Now let us understand the differences between natural and artificial flavors. Source of ingredient wise, natural flavors are derived from natural sources like plants, animals, and microorganisms, either in the raw state or after processing by traditional food preparation process and created in the lab. Artificial flavors are synthesized in a similar environment using chemicals derived from petroleum or other synthetic sources. The production process. Natural flavors are typically produced by physical and mechanical methods like solid liquid extraction. Artificial ones rely on complex chemical reactions carried out in a lab and undergo rigorous testing, quality control, and changes. Taste profile. Wide-ranging and complex profile across several natural products are possible. For the most part, artificial flavors offer an identical sensory experience, but there are instances where some complexity and depth are not possible. From the cost and availability point of view, while natural flavors are generally more expensive and could be limited due to scarcity of the source product, technological advancements could bring about price parity in future. Synthetic options are readily available and often more cost effective. From the sustainability point of view, even as their perceived health benefits make them appealing to health-conscious consumers, the overall sustainability of natural flavors depends on the production process involved and their ecological impact. Responsible sourcing and eco-friendly production methods could lead to more sustainable practices. Artificial flavors are usually considered sustainable, even though synthetic chemicals and reliance on petroleum-based sources could pose an environmental threat. From the regulatory standard point of view, regulatory bodies in their respective regions lay out strict regulations governing artificial and natural flavors. All approved flavors are mentioned continuously and evaluated from a health perspective, and besides permitting their usage, these regulations may lay out criteria that define natural flavors. The same level of scrutiny and regulatory oversight exists for both flavors. In fact, the FDA states that food ingredients must meet the same safety standard regardless of whether they are naturally or artificially derived. From the stability and shelf life point of view, depending on the source and extraction method, natural ingredients could degrade over time, causing issues with taste and texture. However, ingredient providers are innovating to create more stable types. Artificial flavors have an advantage here as they are more stable and can have longer shelf life than comparable natural flavors. Environmental and ethical concerns. There could be minor concerns about the impact of some natural flavors on sources such as trees. For example, the indiscriminate use of a special plant species to obtain a flavor could threaten their availability and raise ethical concerns. Since artificial flavors are monitored in a laboratory setting, they are generally safe and there very little environmental risk. Now, do flavors really affect our health? As we mentioned, flavors are incredibly varied. So there's no straightforward answer to this question. Over the years, some of these compounds have been identified as harmful, so we will cover them next. Before we get going, we should note that flavorings seem pretty safe overall, and beside manufacturers generally use them in very small amounts any negative health effects would be anyway diluted. However, it's the same story as with other additives. Even if food flavoring are tested individually, we cannot know the effects of these components when consumed in combinations with every day for decades. So, we do not know for sure the impact that may have on our bodies. Flavors, whether natural or artificial, don't add nutritional value to food. They don't contribute to significant health benefits through vitamins, minerals, fiber, etc. However, some artificial flavors, such as diacetyl, can cause lung disease. Food flavoring may not be affecting our health at all, or maybe they are. There have been no studies on how they might influence our health. Let us talk about popcorn lung. Bronchiolitis obliterans, also called popcorn lung, was first identified in workers at a microwave popcorn factory in 2000. This serious condition was caused by inhaling diacetyl, which produces a buttery flavor when it's breathed in. Diacetyl can lead to scarring in the lungs, making it harder to absorb oxygen. However, diacetyl is still on the FDA stands for US Food and Drug Administration GRAS list. GRAS stands for generally recognized as safe. There's no safety concerns about eating it unless someone working in a factory with the chemical. We are incredibly unlikely to encounter an amount that would cause damage to our lungs. Importantly, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health has tightened regulations to protect people who might be exposed to flavoring in factories and similar settings. Cancer concerns. In October 2018, the FDA banned 7 artificial flavorings. This followed a 2015 petition from concerned consumers and health advocates. 6 of these were banned after studies showed that they cause cancer in rodents. There are like benzophenone, ethyl alkylate, etc. Manufacturers have added them to candy, baked goods, ice creams, drinks, and other products. According to FDA, the 7th is styrene, was banned because the food industry no longer used it. The US National Toxicity Program said in 2011 that styrene is reasonably anticipated to be human carcinogen. But these names will never be listed in packet labels, as we will only see natural flavor or artificial flavoring type words in packet labels. So we are totally dependent on FSSAI guidelines and their efficiency to stop all the food additives. Those are not good for our health. Obesity. Some experts wonder whether flavoring might contribute to obesity or not. For instance, an opinion article published in BMC Medicine argues that food flavorings might increase the risk of obesity in 2 ways. The first one, a cause of overeating. First, the authors observe that flavoring might encourage hedonic eating, which means eating for pleasure when you don't feel hungry. They explain that modern laboratory designed ultra-processed foods, which rely heavily on flavoring, override the body's natural tendency to eat for survival. The second is flavor nutrient learning. Their second line of argument involves a disruption of Flavor nutrient learning. This learning, they suggest, happens over lifetime. When you eat anything, your body learns to associate the flavor with how that food affects your body, whether it's positive or negative effect. For instance, let me give you a negative example first. Imagine that you ate some delicious prawns, but they gave you food poisoning. From that day on, the flavor of prawn might make you feel queasy. But as the flavor nutrient learning theory goes, if you eat strawberries, your body learns that they contain lots of beneficial nutrients. Because of this, you eventually come to like them. The authors of the opinion article argues that added flavoring make it harder for your body to link flavors to nutrients because your body encounters a wide variety of foods with similar flavors: fresh strawberries, strawberry flavored yogurt, strawberry flavored bubblegum, etc. It can no longer figure out which nutrients each product contains. This, they suggest, could encourage overeating. We should reiterate that this is just a theory. Scientists have demonstrated flavor, nutrient learning in animal experiments, but it's proved trickier to pin down in humans. So, it's not a scientific fact that flavoring contributes to obesity, but it's an idea worth pursuing. Use in farms. Lastly, the author of the opinion article explained that farmers use flavorings in their feed to encourage animals to eat more and gain weight. It's a fairly common practice throughout the industry. You are not a farm animal, of course, but it provides food for thought. Allergies. As we mentioned earlier, food manufacturers don't need to spell out which flavoring they use in their products. They only need to add natural flavoring or artificial flavoring to the product's level. As a consumer, you don't know exactly what you are getting. And in some cases, flavorings derived from mustard, celery, cilantro or coriander, and other herbs and spices have caused allergic reactions. A small study published in the 1990s recruited 11 young children with atopic dermatitis, better known as eczema. The researchers found that balsam of Peru, a natural flavoring, natural vanilla, and artificial vanillin made the eczema worse. However, the study had no control group, so it's possible that the placebo effect was involved. But when the scientists removed flavorings from the children's diets, more than half of the kids had an improvement in their symptoms. And in the US and UK, food manufacturers must mention on labels if their products contain ingredients that most commonly trigger allergies like eggs, seafood, and peanuts. Now let's come to the conclusion. Basically, you cannot avoid food flavoring, and most of these compounds seem pretty safe as far as we know. There's little point opting for natural over artificial flavoring. Either way, we don't know what we are getting really. And there's no evidence that one is safer. Overall, there's a lack of research into how these chemicals might interact when consumed over decades. We discussed in many of the knowledge sessions, ultra-processed foods or UPF are the hotbed of food additives, including flavoring. It would be incredibly challenging and possibly unnecessary to cut on these foods from your diet entirely. But reducing how much ultra processed food you eat, and sticking to whole food is a very good idea. In case you are very sensitive, please stay away from all the foods based on packet levels where artificial flavorings been added. We are at the end of the session. Thank you for your undivided attention. Every day we are sharing ways to do adulteration testing at home. Whatever the way we can cut down on adulteration from our food, we will surely be much more safer. Requesting to spread this message of right to have pure unadulterated food for common people with your family members, friends, neighbors and colleagues. Wishing you a very healthy life ahead. Thank you for your time.